Okay, there's a lot to unpack on this one. I'll start out by asking simple question. What do you think of California Governor Gavin Newsom? Now, likely, if you lean right, if you're conservative, particularly if you're MAGA, you probably think he's the scum of the earth. In fact, President Trump himself refers to Gavin as Gavin Newscum. That is the nickname Trump has given for Governor Gavin Newsom. But what do you think of him? Now, I get that a lot of folks do not favor his politics, do not favor how the state of California is being ran, high taxation, high crime, etc., etc. However, we're not here to talk about Gavin Newsom's politics or even Gavin Newsom himself. I got a hold of a clip from the governor. I want to run this by you because there's a hell of a lot of interesting context in here. And I want to hear from you folks if you think he is full of BS or do you believe that he may be on to something in this clip. Check this out.
I don't think Donald Trump wants another election. You think for a second you want... I have 24 Trump 2028 hats. His folks keep sending me.
And you think he's going to run again?
Don't give me... Who spends $200 million on a ballroom at their home and then leaves the house? So this is serious, guys. This is serious.
So it'll be Newsom Trump in 28.
No, this guy doesn't believe in free, fair elections. He tried to wreck this country. Were you there, January 6th? I think Fox was. At least they were in a lawsuit. They seem to have lost any memory of that. Shareholders didn't. I mean, he tried to light democracy on fire. He dialed for 11, almost 12,000 votes. Now he's doing it in plain sight. And people say, oh, just Trump being Trump. People actually think this guy's serious about having another election? You think he's joking about 2028? You think when he brings foreign leaders to the Oval Office and he goes to the White House store, have you seen this? Anyone? Is it just me? And he shows them the 2028 hats? He's not being serious? Wake up. You will lose your country. Again, it's not about Democrats. It's about all of us.
So you're absolutely convinced he's...
I'm absolutely convinced.
2028.
You've seen it. He's tried to steal the last election. He's trying to rig it in plain sight this time. He wants to get rid of vote by mail. He's talking about eliminating voting machines he doesn't like. He's setting up the contours where he can declare a declaration of emergency for anything. Just cause means whatever he just said on Truth Social. He's running the greatest grift operation in world history. I mean, it makes some of these dictators overseas blush, the crypto, not just the perfume. I mean, come on.
Let me ask you about a couple of your...
Wake up, everybody. Wake up.
Let me ask you about a couple...
Excuse me, and I know it's impolite. We have to be more calm and demure.
A couple of your own...
But I'm not calm, and I'm not going to submit myself to niceties. Not when this guy's trying to wreck our goddamn country.
Wow. Now, there is a lot to unpack there, and that's absolutely what we're going to do. But you hear Gavin Newsom start out by saying, I don't think Donald Trump wants another election. Why would he say that? And then, of course, he follows up by giving a laundry list of reasons why. Now, I want to ask you folks flat out, do you see any validity or possibility of validity in what Gavin Newsom is saying? Or do you believe that President Trump will indeed honor our traditions, serve his 2 terms, and move on? Because Gavin Newsom clearly seems to think the opposite. You hear him state, I have 24 Trump 2028 hats, and it's President Trump's folks that keep sending them to him. Now, the term folks is what we got to want to break down. If he's receiving those hats from MAGA that don't like him, okay, it could be comedy. But if he's receiving those hats from the likes of, say, Marco Rubio or, Ted Cruz or some member of our political atmosphere that is sending Gavin Newsom Trump 2028 hats, that could be something different. Fact is, there's no shortage of Trump supporters that openly state they would have no problem with Trump doing a 3rd term. There are folks that are actually posting memes and things like that of Trump wearing a crown and referring to him as King Trump. You've probably heard a hell of a lot of folks refer to President Trump as daddy. So fact is, there are plenty of Trump supporters that would be totally fine if he did run for office in 2028 or 2032 or however long the guy's going to live. There are people who certainly would be okay with that. So Gavin Newsom's not totally out of left field with that. Now, he asked a hell of a question here. Here's one he asked: who spends $200 million on a ballroom, then leaves? Wow. So he's saying because $200 million went into this ballroom that was added onto the White House, that means that Trump wants to stay there. I'm not 100% certain I agree with that, but it is a valid question to raise. I mean, because I don't believe the $200 million for that ballroom came out of taxpayer dollars. I do believe it was donations and things like that from Trump's friends and associates. So Gavin Newsom's question is, why would you spend $200 million on this if you intend to leave it behind for the next guy? Could be Trump wanted to leave a legacy behind, because the ballroom will forever be tied with the fact that President Trump had it done. So I don't know if the ballroom alone fits the narrative that Gavin Newsom is saying. Who spends $200 million on a ballroom and then leaves? So could just be a gift Trump has left behind for America. In fact is, even if Trump does try to serve a third or fourth term, eventually that's what it's going to be. He can't beat Father Time. I don't care how much winning he is doing. He's going to lose to Father Time. So eventually that ballroom will be left behind for future American presidents. So I'm not totally sure I agree with Gavin Newsom there, but here is one I absolutely do agree with him on. He asked the host, were you there on January 6th? Now, we've had several years out of January 6th to Monday morning quarterbacking and look back at what happened. And I don't think there's much evidence to the contrary that President Trump was trying to steal the 2020 election. Now, I know I'm going to get hammered in the comments for this, and feel free to state your case. I'll respond to you. If you got a point, you got a point. I don't know every damn thing. I'll concede where you have a point. But fact is, now that January 6th, as of this year, will be 5 years in the past, it's pretty clear most of the things that President Trump said about the 2020 election were either not proven or flat out lies. I mean, the Dominion voting machine switching votes, what he said about mail-in votes, all of this stuff, none of this stuff has been proven. Obviously, Ruby Freeman and Shay Moss received a huge judgment, a huge settlement from Rudolph Giuliani, who was part of the Trump campaign, for defaming them and making up lies. Far more of the stuff that Trump stated and his administrators, his friends and associates stated about January 6th turned out to either be not true or lies than any little other things that maybe some of his supporters might point to and say this is true. If anyone points out anything about the January 6th or better yet the 2020 election that shows maybe Trump won or something was suspicious, there's literally 100 things you can point out that are contrary to that, to ask why would Trump say this, or why hasn't that been proven, or why did that turn out to be a lie? So I don't know where else to go with it other than Trump said too many things in regards to that election that he has no evidence of and was unable to prove. Should have first waited till you saw some evidence, waited till you had some proof before throwing that stuff out there to the universe. Fact is, Ashley Babbitt lost her life following that stuff. And then a host of other participants on January 6th did time in jail, lost jobs, family members, all of that stuff. They lost a lot. Folks probably lost their wives and shit behind that. So he pardoned them, but you can't get back the 2 or 3 years you lost dealing with all that, not to mention legal fees and all of that stuff lost. So he screwed over a lot of people making those claims with no evidence to prove the validity of it. But anyway, about to call this guy Jimmy Kimmel. Gavin Newsom. Gavin Newsom also says, was it just Trump being Trump? And he continues on by saying, is he joking about 2028? Now, that is something to bring up because President Trump does get far more benefit of the doubt than virtually anyone else in politics, because he says wild things and crazy statements so often that, as Gavin Newsom stated, is it just Trump being Trump? We've kind of come to expect Trump to do things that are outside of the norm, crossing lines and things like that you don't normally receive from other politicians. which is why he also said, is he just joking about 2028? Something that you would never question another politician doing. You would never look at George W. Bush, Joe Biden, Barack Obama, or anyone else in our lifetime and say, is he just joking about running a third term? None of them have done nothing like that. Certainly not to the point of selling merchandise. And here is what really takes the cake to put Trump in his own special category. You hear Gavin Newsom say he brings foreign leaders to the White House. They go to the White House store and he shows them Trump 2028 hats. Now, why the hell is that even in the White House store? Obviously, it goes against the Constitution. It goes against American tradition. If MAGA, Trump supporters at a rally, at their own personal small business, if you want to joke about Trump 2028, that's one thing. But in the White House store, they actually have those hats inside the White House for sale? I just want to say this flat out. For anybody who has ever gotten upset for Trump because Trump detractors started calling Trump a dictator or saying he's going to violate the Constitution, I don't see how anyone can get angry with that when he's constantly making these references. The president himself should not be allowing Trump 2028 hats to be in the White House, and absolutely should not be taking foreign leaders to the store and showing this to them. You know why? Because all of our foreign leaders know American presidents get 2 terms. They all know that. They all know by our laws the president is only supposed to serve a max of 8 years. So if he is showing them these hats, what kind of message is he delivering to them? Somehow that he supposedly intends to run again or something of that nature? Why is he joking with foreign leaders about going against their Constitution? Anybody who calls Trump a dictator and someone finds that to be insulting needs to ask, well, why is he joking about it? Why is he talking? And I don't even know if it's a joke, to be honest with you, but he shouldn't be doing that. So I'll just leave it at that. And Gavin Newsom continues with, he was being asked, are you absolutely convinced that Trump intends to run a 3rd term? He says yes. He says you will lose your country if you don't open your eyes. That's obviously the opinion of Gavin Newsom. But as I stated, with Trump literally showing foreign leaders Trump 2028 hats and allowing them in the White House store, it's not far-fetched to make that statement Gavin Newsom did, because Trump is also making reference to running a 3rd term. And Gavin Newsom concludes by talking about he believes Trump is trying to steal the election. He points out that Trump is trying to get rid of vote by mail. He's trying to get rid of voting machines, even made references to declaring some kind of emergency which prevents people from voting. I think many of you saw that with the Ukrainians being at war with Russia. Zelensky, the president of Ukraine, was asked, why aren't you holding elections? And he stated, we can't right now. There's a war going on. And Trump happened to be in proximity to Zelensky, and he stated, oh, so that's how it's done, just declare an emergency and then people can't vote? And obviously all the reporters and stuff started kind of laughing because they knew it was almost like a light bulb was going on in President Trump's head. Once again, though, is he joking or is he serious? I'm going to stick with what I've been saying throughout this video. Violating the Constitution is something the president should not joke about, period. That is not something you should laugh about. Having a president making references to breaking our traditions, breaking the Constitution, that should not be funny to you, no matter what, whether he's joking about it or whether he's being serious about it. It just should not be done. But in regards to declaring an emergency, he did state that. And in regards to getting rid of vote by mail and eliminating the voting machines, this goes back to what I mentioned earlier in the video about January 6th. Trump made a whole lot of claims about how voter fraud was going on and virtually proved none of it. And he still stands by the statement that voting machines were switching votes from Trump to Biden. Never proved any of that. Voter by mail is allowing a lot of fraud to happen. Once again, never proved any of that. Not to say it could not be happening. There are people that could possibly, I suppose, be using the mail-in system to commit acts of fraud, possibly hacking into voting machines to defraud the system and switch votes. It's possible. But to actually take action without proving that it actually happened at all, that's a bit suspect. That's a bit suspect. But anyway, let me know in the comments if what Gavin Newsom said sounds like a crock of shit to you, or does it resonate? I'll submit to you, if you lean left. Remember when Trump got elected, a lot of folks said people like Trump because he speaks exactly what they feel, what's on their minds, and it resonates with the people. I'm going to submit to you, for folks who lean left, Gavin Newsom is starting to do that too. I don't think there's much here, if you lean left, that you're going to disagree with that Gavin Newsom said. But let me know if I'm getting that wrong. Feel free to smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.